The second scripture reading for this morning comes to us from the 13th chapter of the Gospel according to Matthew, verses 24 through 33. Jesus put before the disciples another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came and said to him, "Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done this." The slave said to him, "Then do you want us to go and gather them?" But he replied, "No, for in gathering the weeds you will uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time I will tell the reapers, collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn." He put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that someone took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but when it has grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed in with 3 measures of flour until all of it was leavened. May God's blessing rest upon the experiences of Scripture on this day. May it guide the meditations of our hearts and the words of my lips. The realm is like. How on earth can we hope to describe something of God with our rather limited and futile language? How on earth can we hope to grasp the greatness of God and to share it with the world when we are limited in our senses and in our abilities? And the truth is, we have no hope in that. We cannot offer exactly what it is to experience God. So the best we can come up with is parables, things that are cast alongside. And that's what Jesus does. Now, in the different Gospels, Jesus is going to use parables, and he's going to say, "I'm doing it for different reasons." In Matthew's Gospel, the parables aren't there to obscure what it is like to experience God. They're not there to sort of cloud it over and make it hard for us to grasp. I know that's hard to believe. In Matthew's Gospel, Jesus often offers parables to highlight a difference that has already occurred. That there are some people out there who are willfully ignoring the possibilities of the realm. Willfully denying it. And so a parable just won't carry the weight. It'll just be words. Now, that explanation might be soothing for Matthew's community, who is wondering why on earth it is that some people have reacted positively and have come and been part of and embraced what it is that God is doing through Jesus the Christ, but I find it troubling. I find it troubling because this idea that Matthew seems to be putting into Jesus' mouth, where Jesus is offering these teachings, and for folks that are stiff-necked and hard-hearted, folks who are demanding a sign, they just won't get it. They won't capture. The imagination of the realm won't get out of the box that they have created. And that's troubling to me. Because it seems to be in Matthew's Gospel that Jesus is really saying those whose inner sight is obscured will lose what little they have, whereas those who are acknowledging the possibilities will gain so much more. And that bothers me. It troubles me. It's not that the gospel should bring me peace. It's not that the realm of God, the idea of it, should always be unicorns and rainbows, but I am troubled by the idea that some folks won't be brought along. And maybe someday they will. That's the hope, right? That's the hope we live in. And so Jesus offers, in Matthew's gospel here, a collection of 3 parables. Now, we could go on for weeks unpacking these 3 parables. I don't plan on spending that much time. I've got like 10 minutes. And so which one to get into? Well, I guess maybe for this morning, let's get into the wheats and the tares a little bit. The wheats and the tares. Jesus says the realm of God is like a field where a farmer has scattered good grain. Now, we've already got a parable of a sower that has taken place in Matthew's gospel, and so when Jesus brings it up again, we should be hearing the echo of that. The sower scattering the good grain. And the temptation is to make it an allegory where we automatically make the sower equal Jesus and the good grain equal something else. And you could do that with a parable, but that is limiting of the possibilities of a parable. So if in one understanding we want to make it Jesus, we also have to be open to other understandings. But here we have this moment where the sower is sowing the seeds, and it is good seed, and so it's going to come up and it's going to have this wheat. And in the parable of the sower, the seed that falls on the good ground, it comes up and it has this incredible bounty to it. Folks in the ancient world who were farming would have understood all of this. They would have grasped the idea. So that's why I don't think that this was necessarily meant to obscure the nature of the realm of God. Because people would have understood that within that good grain there would be wheat. And within that good grain there would be weeds as well. Now, I was really careful when I built my garden beds in North Carolina. I got some great cotton compost from the gym near down the road. And I planted. And I had wonderful production from these little garden beds. We've got a whole lot of territory out there, so garden beds wouldn't go amiss out there, and a little community garden action going on. And even with all my careful planting that happened, every once in a while I would get something that looked strangely like a dandelion.
They grow in concrete.
They grow in concrete. That's right. And so how did this? I wasn't even putting seeds in because we used pruning. I was putting plants in. And how on earth did that plant or grass or whatever else end up in there? Well, the parable says that you can sow the best seed that's out there. Weeds are going to get in. This is sort of the nature of it. Again, everyone would have understood that. They're like, oh well, yeah, that's sort of how things work. And so when the servants, the slaves of this person who sowed the seed said, well, didn't you sow good seed? And the reality is, everyone's like, well, yeah, you can sow the best seed out there, but you're going to get some weeds. It's just the way it is. Birds are going to fly through the air. Wind's going to blow things in. Kids are going to come along and pick the dandelion heads and go. That's why we should do dandelion salad, dandelion wine, and things along those lines to transform them so they're not weeds. What do we do when we notice that within this realm is like garden experience? Oh, garden experience. Imagine that in Scripture. In this realm is like garden experience that we have these weeds and these weeds that have come up together and we realize that there's a problem. What do we do when we realize there is a problem? Well, let's get rid of the problem element, right? Let's go through and we'll sort of pluck them off and head them off to the past. Because if you don't, the seed could fall and then you've got more issues. So we'll pull them out. Now, my little garden bed, I could pull stuff out really easy because I didn't walk in it. It was a raised bed. The chickens got in it, and they scratched around. And every spring we had a new crop of chickens coming up. But this field, if you go and you try to pull the weeds out, you will uproot the good things that are growing. Sometimes in the process of trying to take care of what we have identified as being out of place, and I've been told that weeds are just a plant growing in the wrong place. To try to uproot the stuff that's out of place, we end up destroying the good around it. I can remember when we lived in Chesapeake, we had my in-laws had a neighbor who was a wonderfully eccentric person, and they had weeds in their yard, and they wanted the weeds gone, and so they used Roundup on individual weeds. So you can imagine, if you've ever used Roundup, what happened. The weed was gone, and so was a 5-foot patch of grass around it, because they kind of tried to round up the weed. In the process of trying to uproot the things that we have identified as not appropriate, sometimes we end up taking out good. So in this parable of this garden experience, this farming experience, Jesus says the farmer, the master, the one who owns the land and sowed the seed, said, listen, let them go. And at the end, let the reapers take care of it. Now again, if we want to go with an allegorical understanding of this, that is a word of restraint to the church. In the end, let the reapers take care of it. All right? It's not the job of the servants to go and say, I'm going to take care of getting rid of the bad things. In the end, it's the reaper's job. And that's one way this has often been interpreted, but it's also the way that it would have been done in practice. In the ancient world, you wouldn't have gone through and spent your time pulling out each little individual weed. You would let the whole crop come to its fullness, you would harvest it, and then you would separate out. Because it was easy to identify them. The servants had identified them when they started to come up, because the heads of grain are different on the weeds versus the wheat. And as they mature, the heads of wheat will actually get heavy and bend over, and the weeds will stand proud. As they mature, the wheat bows low, and the weeds will stand proud. So it's easy to tell them apart. And so Jesus is saying in this parable, the kingdom, the realm is like this sort of thing, that no, we're gonna let this process go. We're gonna let it unfold the way it's supposed to unfold, and at the end we will do the things that we know how to do. Now, is Jesus literally talking about the realm? No. He said the realm is like. So there are certain things we take from that. And there's certain things that we should leave. And depending how we want to approach this parable is going to depend on what we take and what we leave in this whole process. But one thing we can take from this is that ultimately, when it's all said and done, God's going to take care of things. That the initial intent is goodness. Again, going back to the garden story, right? God looked upon it and said, yeah, that's good stuff. The initial intent is goodness, and in the end, God is going to take care of it. In the in-between, lots of stuff is going to happen. Some of which we have control over, and some of which we won't. Now, the other thing that Jesus has said in the Gospels is that the realm is now. The realm is breaking in this moment. The realm has started to unfold, and that's, again, how we experience things. The realm is in this moment, but this moment isn't the culmination of the realm. It's not the fullness of things. The Greek does a much better job of giving us this sense of when something has come to completeness because of the way the language is built. English doesn't quite carry the same weight in the same way. And so here we are in this story that talks about grain and weeds and the nature of farming and harvesting. And it is a note of goodness at the beginning and expectations at the end and life in between. And that's where we're going to stop. Always leave them wanting more. We are a church that is in that time in between. Goodness at the beginning, hopefully expecting what will come in the end. And now we are in this place. Servants of God, asking what it is we are to do and faithfully observing the commands that have been given to us. Thanks be to God. Amen.